Hey everyone, this is Ankita. I'm from India, and today the presentation topic is the plight of a lone writer. Before diving into the deep insights of this topic, I just wanted to share my own background with you all because I think I have been a lone writer for the major portion of my life. So, I did my undergrad in computer science from India itself, and then I was posted as a Java dev at Infosys. I worked as a Java developer for 3 years, but I always wanted to be a writer because I have been involved with writing exercises previously, and I won a lot of awards. I won a lot of recognition for it. So I wanted to switch to writing, but I did not as well wanted to leave my tech tag that I had because I really loved doing that. So when I just quit my job one day and I had no idea how to go forward with it. So the notice period was for 1 month, and I wanted to ensure that within that 1 month's period, I absolutely know what I want to do. I absolutely know what I should go forward with. So I started looking for jobs and I landed a content writing job, which was not exactly content writing because what they were expecting was also a sort of technical writing, but I guess we don't have that much exposure as to differentiate between the two parts of writing. So I took that job, and that was the first time I was bombarded with a lot of responsibilities because it was a startup and I was the only writer in that startup, and I had no clue as to how to begin, how to go forward with it, how should I even handle all those responsibilities. And since it was a startup, they wanted everything perfect because they were short of capital, they were short of time. We had a lot of clients coming in, but the amount of work kept on increasing. So I knew I had a lot on my shoulders, but I had no idea how to handle it. And I think this is not just when I was the only writer for my first job, as in, but I think this always comes out when you are the only writer, or when you are the only person who has to handle a perfect chunk of the job. So after 6 months or so, I left that job because I was not really able to handle all that pressure, not able to handle all those responsibilities. So I could quit that job, and I went on to do another technical writing job under a team because I thought once I gain all the exposure, once I gain all the uh, once I gain all those responsibilities, once I gain all those guidelines, I would be able to perform better. So I worked with for a team for about 1.5 years, and I think that was one of the best periods of my learning because I learned so much, and I knew that obviously 1 year is not that enough, but I knew that this is something that's going to be my learning forever. And then I decided to switch another job because I was like, okay, this is where I want to go. And that was when I received a very difficult choice because I was offered one more job opportunity, which was with a very opulent organization. And simultaneously, I received an offer for with a startup, and that was for a lone writer opportunity. But with the organization, the bigger one, I had an opportunity to work with a team. And that's when it struck me that if I didn't take this risk now, I would never be able to learn this, how to be your own master. And being in a job as well, I was actually working as an entrepreneur. So I took the job of that startup and I started working. And not to lie, but eventually things started falling into place. But initially they were terrible because that organization had no proper documentation in place, and it was all up to me to understand the product, to go about it, to design the process. And I think that's when I understood that how difficult it is to be a lone writer. And 2 years down the line working with that startup, I think I thought I'm at a good place to be, to make you understand, or to share my plight of being a lone writer. This also applies not just being in a job, but this also applies if you're a freelancer. Um, if you're even working with a team, I guess this helps you to build up an individuality that I think would help any one of you. So before starting this presentation, or maybe the processes that I want to take you through, I wanted to show you some stats, and let's go through some stats. So if you can see here, the number of tech writers, and these stats have been taken from Tom Johnson's I'd Rather Be Writing website, because I think he conducted some surveys and shared his survey form with almost 900 people, out of which 500 responded to his all the questions. That was a list of 50 questions. And one of the most important questions in that form was, how many tech writers or documentarians are on your team? And surprisingly, I was not at all expecting this number, but there were 34% of people who were working as lone writers. And this might come as a surprise to a lot of people here as well, because this is not what we expect. We always think that we are the only ones who are suffering the wrath of being a lone writer, but that's not true, as we can see here. So this was totally shocking and surprising. And let's see what are the reasons that people quoted for being a lone writer. So someone said, I'm alone on the team, but there are 8 writers throughout the company. So you can you just imagine, you are a lone writer also if you're just working for a single product where there are a lot of products in the company, but you're the only one working for that product. Even that is considered as being a lone writer. Second was no tech writer, but plan to hire some, which yeah, I have been hearing in my company as well for 2 years now, and we haven't been able to hire anyone. Third is, I'm a lone writer, but if we move to the GitHub model, developers will also contribute. And this is a very important point, because we always assume that developers are going to contribute, but it not always happen, because there are a lot of things, and I'll come to that point as well later. Um, Someone else wrote, I'm a lone writer in my location and part of a distributed doc team of about 10 writers. So this is another type of being a lone writer, because at a particular location, you are the one who is handling everything. So demographics come into picture, while your other or entire team works out of some other location. Someone else has written, I'm the only full-time tech writer. I consult with teams where developers write most of the docs with my guidance. And that's also one of the good things, because I think this is one of the rare things, because developers really don't contribute that much. But yeah, so someone has written, I'm an external freelancer, and so on and so forth. So we can see there are a lot of reasons, and just by the gist of it, you can understand there are so many categories of being even a lone writer. So what exactly are the reason behind these stats? So why don't people, or why don't companies want to hire technical writers? Because as a major companies, advertising, marketing, or documentation, because running your software is not that easy. So this all comes under the formula for being a writer. But a lot of companies don't hire. Um, leave the tech writing part as well, but not even general marketing content writers. So what is the reason behind not hiring technical writers? So the main reason, what we have formalized, is low political capital, because not a lot of companies want to invest in technical writers. Everyone assumes that this part of the work is not that important, or maybe it's easy, or maybe they want to acquire developers who can do this job, because as you are coding, you are able to maybe write those talks to how to use those software. But this is what is an assumption, and that's why we exist, because we have to break these assumptions. But yeah, that's the reason behind that's the major reason behind these stats. Second is short-term focus. So every organization thinks that if we are coding, suppose if I'm a developer and my organization wants me to write as I code, that's a term, doc as code, which has been designed by Tom Johnson again. So that's what is expected, but that's a very short-term focus, because developers are never going to write it in a way that is understood by everyone, first of all. And second of all, Being a developer, you are not going to revisit those docs and make small changes or make even major changes when the code changes or when a new product launches or when a new software launches. So organizations really have a short-term focus that this is how it's going to work. And the third is it's very hard to realize the importance of good docs, especially in open source organizations where we see a lot of projects that we could have used to our efficiency, which we would love to use, are do not have a good documentation. Because suppose there is a tool and which I want to use, but no good documentation exists. So I really have to make some changes or maybe opt out for for another software, and that's how it goes. Be or not to be. So what is this? The question is to be in a team or to be a lone writer. I mean, sometimes it's not even a choice for us, but what are the benefits of being in a team? Being in a team, you are getting more discussions, you get into more discussions, you get constructive feedback for your writing, and you get into effective brainstorming. What I mean by this is, this is from one of my desk in one of the companies where we were brainstorming how to document a JS SDK documentation. And with this is such an example because that's how teams come into picture. That's how teams are effective, because you can have more discussions. You can get feedback for your work. Being a lone writer, what I miss the most is not having enough people to give feedback on my writing. And then there can be effective brainstorming. Suppose you are a team of 2 or 3 writers and you are bombarded with some project, so you are into an effective brainstorming session so that you can come up with the best practices to document that. You can have a lot of follow-ups, because if you are a lone writer, you are the one who has to do from A to Z. You have to follow up on people, you have to keep a track, you have to process. So there is no team to build those follow-ups. There are better time management skills, because being a lone writer, personally, I have been at a situation, I've been at a place where I was like at one point of time I was given 7 tasks, and all of them were targeted as major, because everything is important, everything is urgent. But when I started working on them, I realized this is going to take a lot of time, which people don't realize, which your organization doesn't realize, because um, defining the technicalities behind that is very, very, very important. And the last part is no imposter syndrome. So when you're working in a team, you have a lot to divide. Suppose if anything goes wrong in the documentation, being a lone writer, I think I'm the one who has to be blamed always, because I don't even have to pull it through. And the worst part that I feel being a lone writer is I have enough reasons to feel that imposter syndrome always, because whenever I submit my document, I'm always under the feel that, oh no, this is not that good, this is not that well written. But there are some of very good reasons of being a lone writer as well. I think I've become better leader, I've become a better patient writer. I am the one who is taking all decisions, like I'm the master of decisions. Now if I want to even be, or even if later I have a product, I have something to launch, I know how to take those decisions. It's not just dependent on your technical writing skills, but it's also dependent on a lot of other things. I'm the problem creator and solver. So even if I create some problem, even if there's a glitch from my side, I know how to solve them, because I'm the one who's doing each and everything. And I think it's almost like being an entrepreneur, because you don't realize it, but you are handling a lot of things, from uh, for putting up a request for a software, for managing the processes, for talking to SMEs, for convincing your PMs regarding a feature, or getting feedback. So everything you are doing it from A to Z. It's almost becoming like an entrepreneur. uh, that's So how do loan writers benefit? That's a very important question, because if you are a loan writer, you have to know a few deals where you can benefit for yourself. So what I have found personally is be a part of a community. I cannot stress enough how important is this, because when you are in a community, you don't feel and you don't when you are in a community, you don't feel that you are a lone writer, because you have a lot of other people who are suffering through the same situation. You have a lot of people to take feedback from. Especially, I think Write the Docs community is one such community where I found I have a lot of people where I can just randomly put my query, get an answer, and get back to working. There have been times when I'm not able to understand what should I name this particular section, or what should I been talking. So that's where I put all of my queries and I get answers to that. And I have been a part of a lot of community, which I will come to later, because I really want to share all that with you. Second is be a part of side projects. I think being a lone writer, all I know being a lone writer, being a lone writer is almost exhausting already. But I think being a part of side projects help you with other skills, other benefits that you might have in your own writing skills. Being a lone writer, you're already improving a lot. It's already taxing, I know, but when you are handling those side projects, you are actually building a lot of skill sets for yourself. Third is create style guides. I have created a style guide for my company, and while creating that style guide, I was recognizing how important it is as a writer ourselves to have a style guide for ourselves, because there are so many style guides available. Like we have Microsoft style guide, we have Chicago Manual style guide, we have Google style guide, but defining those components for yourself, for your company, is extremely important. And the fourth part is look for hackathons or events. Just like Hacktoberfest, identify and try and look for events that are happening in your demographic, or even online, because obviously after this pandemic, I guess we all are looking for something virtual, for something that happens online. So always keep looking for hackathons or events, because that's when we are also improving our skill sets, and we are also getting to know a lot of other people. So that's how you're going to benefit as a lone writer. So, what tools can we use to manage our work? This is a very important question, because I think a lot of people from Write the Docs community as well have put up this question multiple times. Um, I actually tracked all the messages from Lone Writers channel also to identify the major pain points that we have as lone writers. So, the tools that I use is Airtable and Google Sheets from here. Airtable is one such tool that helps you organize all your tasks and also assign them to the people who are in your company. For that, maybe Jira tickets also helps. Zendesk is one such tool. Google Sheets is one such tool which I use. Kanban boards can be used on Trello or Git. Microsoft Planner and Draw.io. And this Draw.io is one such tool which I used to use in my previous company as well. And this is one tool where you can draw a lot of flowcharts, and this is one of the most important tools, because you would want to draft flowcharts for your own product. And the main part is, so what should be the action plan of a lone writer? Create your style guide. Create your own style guide, distill components and absorb guidelines into tools, because that's how you create your own style guide. And I'll give you an example from my current company. We are an e-commerce company who are building search for e-commerce websites. So a major portion of our for the major portion of my time, I'm always confused. Shall I refer the readers as users, readers, shoppers, or customers? And this is such a confusing thing. So once you decide where do we need to use users, where do we need to use shoppers or customers, and it should stay consistent throughout the documentation. So even if you leave the company later, you know that someone who is coming also knows how to use these terms. And the second part is, will it be e-commerce? The E should be small, the C should be capital, it should have an hyphen. Whatever are the reasons, you know that a style guide always helps. So create your own style guide. And the second part is define a process in place, because if you draft those, we know that we have a process in our head, but drafting that process onto a document lets everyone in the company know they are aware of it, that what's your writing style, what is your process of doing it through. So I have seen this a lot of times, that when people just come and just ping me on Slack that this is the task, this is the task, I always refer them to this document, that this is what I have already on my plate, and this is the process I'm going to absorb for the next task. And this makes uh, clarity for everyone in the company and for myself as well, because I don't have to worry about the multiple tasks that I'm going through. So that's one important part. And the power of commentaries, as I told previously, that this is the part where I'm going to discuss how important communities are. So this year, for season of dogs, I actually proposed a proposal for the Good Dogs project. And out of all the projects, I was very intrigued with this particular project because it had all that I was looking for. um, I'll just take you through what the Good Dogs project was, or is maybe. Uh, I'll just take you through what Good Dogs project is, because this is one thing that I learned a lot for the past 5-6 months. Good Docs project is building templates for open source documentation. So um, the major pain point that we were trying to eradicate from the beginning was that in open source documentation, we don't have enough political capital, we didn't have enough resources. We know that developers don't have that good a writing skill, or maybe time as well, to document that. So what if we had already designed templates that lets that lets the writer, that lets the developer, that lets anyone in the team draft a documentation if they want to, without hiring an actual technical writer? And what if they could do all this just by having a template? what this what does this include is, we have a team that could collaborate on this. um, Customized templates avoid blank page anxiety. So whenever, personally as well, whenever I have to start an article and I open a Google Doc and I'm like, okay, what should I write first? And this is the anxiety that I think almost all of the writers have had once in their lifetime. And to avoid this blank page anxiety, it's best to have a template in place. That's how style guides also help us. And putting those best practices into template. So this would enable all the engineers, all the writers to write better and maybe have a context to refer. So I think Good Docs project is one such project that had a team collaboration from all over the globe. There were team members from, I think, every part of the globe. And this is the best way to learn, because you are actually exposing yourself globally. Because I think for India, for US, for UK, for Japan, anywhere, everywhere, there are different deals. There are different ways of handling a documentation or even writing processes. And I'm learning so much. I actually take notes when I'm in a meeting because they have such good exposure of writing. So I think, and also if anyone wants from here, can get a link to the Slack channel and join it. I think this is the end of my presentation here. And the major takeaways, I think, was create your own style guide template, tools to look forward to, because I think those tools could help you a lot. I think nothing other than those tools is ever required. And the third is process to follow. Please decide a process for yourself and for your company to follow. And the fourth and the most important part is communities to be a part of. Be a part of a lot of communities, not even if lot, be a part of at least 2-3 communities. Let yourself out, express yourself, and learn a lot, because I think upskilling is the only answer which we as lone writers, or we even as technical writers, could have. So the only answer is upskilling, upskilling, upskilling. I think being a lone writer, I learned how to create videos, I learned how to create images, even edit them, uh, add all sorts of borders and mixing. I think I learned a lot of tools like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, Sketch, which otherwise I think I would not have, because we already have proper team to work upon that. And now I know that even if technical writing, even if I want to switch to another stream, I already have a lot to go through. I have learned how to use GitHub and all. So I think this is the major takeaway that you have as a lone writer. And thank you. That was it. If you have any questions, please put it down. I'm happy to help. Thank you.
All right, Ankita, thank you so much for joining us after your excellent presentation there. It was heaps and heaps of good information in there for lone writers, which is often a very, very hard position to be in as a documentarian. So yeah, some really, really good insights there. And that's reflected by the sheer volume of questions that we've had come in from your talk. It's been quite incredible, actually. So let's see if we can get through most of them. And if we can't get through all of them, I'm sure people can find you on social media to ask you more. So I wanted to sort of touch on some tools and processes questions first, if I may. So when you're a lone writer and when you're the first technical writer for an organization, what sort of standard practices do you think you'd set up in place, or what kind of documents do you think you'd prepare?
Sure. So first of all, I think you should go through all the resources that the company already has, be it the videos, be it the already existing documentation, or anything that's existing. Please go through it. Ask your company to give you some time, at least 3 weeks of time, because I did the same. So ask them, go through everything, all the products, all the functionalities, because obviously you are not going to get through all of it, but get a gist of it. Then start documenting the processes. I've also shared a sheet which you can reuse, because that is something that you can reuse for the processes. Like you can ask your people to put in the task in there. Mm-hmm. And after that, you can, this is one tip that I always give, please keep evidences of your work, because when you are a lone writer, you will be flooded with tasks from everywhere. Like everyone will come and, personally ping you, can you please edit this? Can you please change this? Please keep a track of all that, because it always gets neglected. And that's why keep a sheet of all the tasks that you do. So these are some of the best practices that I've learned over time, because I didn't used to do this and I used to get a flack for it quite often. So yeah, do this. And the tools. So I've changed 3 companies for this technical writing thing, and over all the organizations that I've noticed, everyone uses a different tool. So it's very difficult. Like in my previous organization, we used to use Data and XML editors like Oxygen and all. Here we use WordPress. But what I have personally found good is that Data is good for when you want to reuse your documentation. But the thing is, it's better to have less control over the tools than the documentation. So make sure that that is your preference. I would prefer GitBooks over it. I don't know if anyone knows here, but GitBooks is a very good tool for maintaining documentation. It's a little bit pricey, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I've used Gitbook as well. It sort of takes a lot of the rough edges around getting up a
exactly
documentation set. Really, I think you're right there, Ankita. You really need to, like, if you're a lone writer, you need to make a pretty hard decision, don't you, about tools, because ultimately it's you that's probably maintaining the tools as well that you use, and that can actually take up a significant portion of your time as a lone writer and take you away from the core value that you're delivering, which is actually writing documentation. Right.
And there are going to be so many heated arguments over this, because I've had that, closed doors, heated arguments over the tools that you're going to use. But please make sure that you are the one who's taking the decision.
Yeah, totally. You've got to be on the table with that one for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. So on the whole, like, sort of notion of tools and processes, as a lone writer, where do you go to find inspiration? Like, how do you decide on the rules that you're going to be setting up for the things like docs, like style guide, your tone, a voice? How do you even start as a lone writer?
Again, this is something that I've learned by using all those things. Like someone I think had asked, sometimes I have to use you as a pronoun, and sometimes we have to use we or something like that. I always prefer using a second person tone, like you. And so we are an e-commerce company. And while we are writing those things, we are writing for businesses, but it's actually for their shoppers. So it's like a two-way thing. So you have to make sure that you're talking to your businesses, but you're talking about the customers that they are going to serve to. So this is a very difficult thing, but you have to make sure that you're talking mostly in the conversationalist language, because that's preferable. And Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
So what about
And
things
yeah,
like I was thinking like more about setting things up, like the baseline things you might need, like style guides and your tone in
yeah.
your business. Do you think there's a way of actually, like, do you feel that a lone writer has to do all that work themselves, or is there perhaps another way that lone writer can leverage other people there?
Yeah, I think we cannot have everything from scratch, and it's pretty stupid to do everything from scratch because we have a lot on. So it's always good to take inspiration from an existing style guide. As I mentioned, there are a lot of style guides, but please make sure that you are referring to the one that you mostly relate to. Suppose Google Style Guide. If you mostly relate to that, especially because the revised version of Google Style Guide is pretty good because of the inclusive language and everything that they have included. So it's better to use a particular style guide, take inspiration from that, and make sure that you have your own components to it. That as I gave an example in my presentation as well, that suppose if we have to write e-commerce, so should the E be small, should the C be capital, should we have a hyphen? All those things are also mentioned in the style guide, apart from the other style guide that you have taken, inherited.
It's funny you mentioned e-commerce. I had that exact same debate with a technical writing team that I work on as well. It's a hard word to get right because there's no standard for it, is there? Yeah, no, that's true. It's a tricky one.
Tough nut to crack.
Bit of a I guess a question now about reviews, which is of course a really important thing about technical writing in general, but probably even more so for lone writers. As a lone writer, do you have a particular favorite way of doing reviews?
So there are some drawbacks of being a lone writer because you cannot ask your teammate to, you are handling the writing part and ask your teammate to handle the review and proofreading part. It's not going to happen. So you are the one who has to go and check on the project managers, on the SMEs. And I have learned it the hard way also, because after this lockdown, since we are working from home, this has increased a manifold times, because pinging each and everyone again and again for review is a tiring process. But this is how it's going to happen, because I think this is something that I don't have a solution to even now. Like after being working for these years, I still don't have a solution for reviews, because there is no easy way, I think.
I think actually having someone to just, the luxury of shoulder checking your work and just having fresh eyes on it, that's a real problem if you're the only person in the business that, identifies as a documentarian or actually has a passion for documentation as well. Like some people know you need it, but they have no interest in actually participating in the whole process.
Exactly.
I wonder if you could, sometimes it's good to, even if you can't get someone to review the work yourself, I wonder if there's like an opportunity to use things like Hemingway app and things like that, or maybe even Grammarly if you can afford the subscription, to sort of be your second eyes as a lone writer. Maybe that's a way to get around the problem.
Yeah. We also use Grammarly Premium for making those English things. So we do those reviews, but more than that, it is about the, especially when it comes to API and JS SDK documentations, it becomes so much more than, just English, because it's much more than the structure and the codes, if it's right. So all those things take a lot of time, rather than just being a grammar check.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot more to API documentation than just words. So yeah, it's not just the words, it's actually the information that's in there as well. So it's a really good point. I think we are getting towards, I think we might have time for one more. Let me see if I can find a good one in here. So as a lone writer, do you actually miss being in a team?
Oh yeah. So this is my own choice. It's almost like, when you get into love marriage, you cannot complain to your parents because you have chosen the partner. So it's almost like that. So this is something that I've chosen by myself. I can't complain about it now. But yeah, I do miss being in a team sometimes. But, especially during this lockdown, my entire documentation cycle went through an upgrade. So it was only me. I worked like for 18 hours straight a day. And that's the time when I missed being in a team so much. But when the end results come, and when everyone is praising your efforts, it's almost like, okay, I learned so much. I had so many crackhead days, and my parents were all, what are you even doing? All those things. So I have had some pretty bad days, but the end result is so good when everyone is praising your efforts and you are the one who has done it, the entire thing. It's almost like, nurturing your own baby. So I think it's a pretty
that's a pretty good way of describing it, I think, there, Ankita. Look, we're actually there's a perfect time to actually end the Q&A session there on that note, I think. Look, thank you again for coming and having a chat to us after the show.
Thank you so much for having
thanks,
me.
folks, for all the really great questions for Ankita. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, people.
All right, we might.
I can see a lot of e-commerce discussions happening.
Sorry, what was that?
I think a lot of people are having e-commerce discussions in the chat. So
yes, well, you know what technical writers are like. It's you can go off and shave a yak about how many different ways of spelling a word. It's one of our favorite pastimes.
Okay.
Thanks again, Ankita. We'll see everyone over.
Thank you, Jared.